beaming from Pacific Junction Hotel to Earth.
Yo, welcome to my Summer Lair. I'm your host, Sammy Younan, and I have with me a really cool, super duper entrepreneur. Is that your kind of title?
I guess so. Entrepreneur or, person who's trying to make things happen.
Okay.
Something.
All right. That's a lot to put on a business card. So
Yeah.
Introduce yourself and the name of your really cool app.
So my name's Sam Wils, and our application or browser-based program is called WingaDoos. And what WingaDoos does is we make animated, interactive, choose-your-own-adventure stories that teach elementary kids the basics of money: saving, spending, giving, growing money, and responsible decision-making.
So before we dive too much into the app, and we're going to get to that, I want to start with something really interesting. You fought at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I did. I was so I've been into martial arts and boxing. Boxing's actually a really big passion of mine. And a couple of years ago, I was at business school, and I had a friend who talked to me about this program called Haymakers for Hope. So I'll give a shout out to them. They're a really cool organization. And basically, you raise money for cancer charities. In my case, it was a liver cancer charity because I knew someone at the Sloan Kettering department. And they trained and put us up for a fight and, fought at the theater at Madison Square Garden, which was a cool experience.
Yeah. What is that like? Because Madison Square Garden has a huge boxing history.
It does, yeah. I mean,
Now you've added to that legacy.
That's right. I've added to that legacy. We had, it was in the theater, so it wasn't on the big stage, but there's still probably about 1,100 people there. And the theater, there's a lot of great fights that have been fought there. Recently Lomachenko fights there a lot, Triple G, a lot of really great boxers. And I certainly added to that legacy. What is it like? Well, in my case, I, considered myself to be kind of a shifty stick and move kind of fighter. You can't see me, obviously, but I'm very tall and lanky, and I think I have pretty good footwork and movement. And I was fighting a shorter guy, but the moment you kind of walk in and they were playing, my walkout song was Juicy, and I just got so hyped up, and then the bell rings, and I completely sort of lost any sense of strategy I had and was just like, Yeah, so
this is like playing Jeopardy at home, right? Like you can make thousands of dollars because you're just killing it at home. But as soon as you're on the set and you have to ring the buzzer and everything else, you're like, I don't know who that was. I'm like, I never heard of Napoleon.
Yeah, you get lost in Trebek's eyes and get nervous and forget to hit the buzzer. So that's what happened in my case, but it's still a cool experience.
That's really neat. So this boxing and that kind of strategy, and boxing is also known as the sweet science. Does any of that apply or help you figure out business and how you navigate business? Or is there any applications to those?
It's,
because they're both fights.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I've actually probably not spent as much time thinking about that as I should. There's certainly overlaps. One of the ways is definitely, I think, catharsis in terms of hitting stuff feels really good. So being a business owner or an entrepreneur, as you said, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of frustrations trying to get your product in the hands of as many people. And I think without an outlet, either emotionally or physically, it becomes difficult. So for me, boxing and martial arts are just an amazing way of clearing my head, getting out what I need to get out, and allowing me to sort of be level-headed going forward. There's also probably a lot of overlaps in terms of how you can think of the science part of it, tactically. I mean, the experience I just told you about was, definitely something I think about a lot is don't lose focus of the plan, even when things get heated. Probably something I should think of more, actually, when applying to business.
All business really is just haymakers for hope.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Just you're hoping you land that big shot. That's
right?
it.
Some sort of deal, or you have a big meeting or whatever, and it's like, we got to deliver on this presentation. Haymakers for hope. Right. So you hope awesome. You swing and hit the chin or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All you can do is just close your eyes, throw an overhand right and hope it lands.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, the app is the WingaDoos, and it's a financial literacy for younger kids, kindergarten to grade 3, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So we've seen this a lot in popular culture, where like ESPN had a documentary called Broke, where a number of athletes who signed really high profile contracts winning like hundreds of millions of dollars, they went broke. We've seen this with MC Hammer, who also went broke. So is this app inspired by MC Hammer's experiences?
Yeah, we almost called it Hammer Time.
Okay.
And then we had to change the name to be something more child appropriate. But
because this is the cautionary tale, right? You don't want them to end up like MC Hammer.
I mean, it's true. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this is in this country, we put our average college graduate in $39,000 of student debt. Less than 10% of classrooms teach anything about money. And most importantly, and this is kind of the reason we started the business, there's a lot of brain science that comes out. Particularly, there was a white paper that inspired us early on from Cambridge University that says that money habits are formed before the age of 7. So even though we're focused on young kids, the idea is that in a society that doesn't value financial education, where you put kids in debt and don't train them how to get out of debt, these things need to start very early on. You know, forming lifelong habits prevents you, if you come into money some days like MC Hammer or all these athletes that you mentioned, being able to make smart, sound financial decisions. And that's the most important thing. It's an important part of being a functioning member of society. And when people don't get that, it creates a very difficult life pathway. So we need to do a better job of educating our youngest at the most impactful age.
Money is a weird thing too, because there is, especially when you're talking to kids, because there's already a suspension of disbelief. Like, this piece of paper is worth $20. This piece of paper is just something we put in a printer. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weirder thing for them. Do they seem to kind of get it? As you've noticed, they kind of interact with the app.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing. I mean, money, like, if we really think about it, is just it's the belief that this piece of paper holds value, and that somebody puts Thomas. I was going to say Thomas Jefferson, but I guess that's not that relevant anymore. Where somebody puts Lincoln on it, or anybody else, that you can exchange that for a certain amount of goods and services versus something that has Ben Franklin on it. So it is kind of a high concept, and that concept's been made more difficult by the fact that we live in an era of digital payments, where parents are buying stuff on Amazon Prime and barely using cash. So the opportunities to teach kids about the concept of money are getting slimmer, and it's becoming harder. And as student debt rise, you're in more of a crisis position where we need to make this a societal priority.
And you touched upon this already, but how come we don't teach this kind of stuff in school? Like, it almost seems like there's a lot of stuff that the school curriculum has that's like, that could be already covered by Google, like how many different states there are and stuff like that. Like, it should be freeing up more time to kind of focus on money. Like, it's the same thing of how we kind of do like sex and health, but we don't do any dating.
That's
so
right.
How to talk to a girl, we don't know. But here's how to sleep with her, right? That's what we teach them.
Yeah.
So how come money and like financial literacy, as you put it, is not being taught in schools, or it's just not a priority?
I think that, the first reason is society moves faster than bureaucracy. Whenever you have a bureaucracy, and, obviously education is a massive bureaucracy starting at the federal levels down to the state and local levels. It becomes hard to change stuff for so many people. And, I think you can find a numerous amount of examples where the education system is years behind. I mean, like, people talk about still learning script or, other things. I mean, I'm not going to hate on script, but like, there are certainly subject matters that are more valuable for kids to learn. So I think that's one reason. Another reason is, I think now we're just starting to get to a point where student debt's gotten so bad that we're realizing that this is an issue. And there's this reticence, this resistance to talk about money, because I think we think it's a more complex thing than it is. Like, I run into all the time, I say, hey, we're trying to teach kids about money. And people go like, how do you teach a kid about compounding interest? Like, what do you do that? Like, are you trying to turn them into the banker? And it's like, no, the world is, made up of transactions. Everything you do is going to have to do with budgeting, saving, and even things like delayed gratification. The fact that like you, maybe resist the temptation to hold on to save or have something better happen in the future. Those are fundamental concepts that we need to start teaching. And, what I've seen, especially in the last year, is because the debt conversation has become more and more of a national issue. People are starting to talk about this. States are starting to pass laws, which is really exciting for us.
And is this app, is it aimed at like a certain demographic of children, like at more at-risk areas and poorer areas, or any kid needs to learn how to kind of like save money and do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I oftentimes get asked, like, how are you closing the gap between rich kids and poor kids? And actually, while there is sort of a functional gap that like there's higher risk for kids from, lower socioeconomic backgrounds, the money issue of, people not learning is actually kind of across the spectrum. So, wealthy kids don't learn about it. Less wealthy kids don't really learn about it. So we've designed this to be broad in scope. And, the way it works is this is not an application that a kid is going to, download or a parent gives and the kid just kind of goes off and uses it. It's meant to be an experience either with a teacher in a classroom where the teacher guides, the kids through the lesson, through the stories and through the choices, and they can customize that to the appropriate level of their class and what their class wants to hear and learns about. And we're also coming out with a way for parents to have an interactive experience with their kids too. So it's almost like a co-learning application as opposed to something that you just sort of give to your kid at a restaurant and they distract themselves.
Yeah, like a babysitter or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that you brought up the parents too. Is this like having like the sex talk or something like that? You have to have the money talk. Is this something that parents are you finding in terms of your research, in terms of your interactions? Parents are not having like the money talk with their kids, or where is this kind of knowledge gap kind of happening?
Yeah. So, when we first did this, we ran a survey with several hundred people, and one of our results showed that people are more likely to have a conversation with sex and drugs more than they are to talk about money. Money is a very taboo in this subject. And a lot of it is because, parents have, been burned themselves. And of course they're resistant to talk about it. They feel like they may not know about it. They feel that maybe that's an unfair system. And it's a hard subject to talk about if you've had some past trauma with it. But parents absolutely need to have the money conversation with kids. It's a changing world. And, if you don't, there are big consequences to pay. If I can share a story.
Go for it.
I was just at ISTE, which is I believe the largest educator conference in the country. It was in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking to this, and I had a teacher share something that was kind of blew me away. And the teacher was talking about financial education in his classroom. And he said he had a student who, raised her hand and said, "Oh, my mom doesn't need to, she never pays for clothes when she goes to the clothing store." And he thought, "Oh, the parents must go to a clothing bank." But the kid revealed that, "Oh no, it's just when she goes to the clothing store, she has this magic card and she waves the card and they don't have to pay." And the kicker on this story was that the girl was 14 years old.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I was like, we can't live in a society where that kid's a couple years away from making the decision whether to go into college and get into student debt and not understand that, mom had to pay for those clothes and that, the credit card was just a different form of payment. That's a dangerous situation to be in. So my hope is that anyone who uses our program or anyone who gets any kind of money talk or, can really avoid getting into that situation.
With magic cards.
Yes, with anything. I mean, it's just like we can't fail kids and have them have that conversation when they're 14.
So the WingaDoos app you said is a choose your own adventure. Can you kind of break it down a little bit and give us a little bit of sense of what's kind of going on with it and how it works?
Yeah, so the WingaDoos are a band of pigeons. Literally, they're starting a band, and kids will follow along, different stories as the WingaDoos, do things like have to figure out how to sell more merchandise, or pay for a restaurant bill, or
instruments.
Yeah, getting instruments, exactly. And kids will watch short little narrative clips. There's always a song in each module that we're creating. And then kids and teachers or parents will have the opportunity to select a character, and we provide different lessons based on each character. And when the kids select a character, they'll hear sort of the choices that character gets to make, and they can, in a classroom environment, vote on what they want the characters to do. So it gives an opportunity for teachers to teach cost benefits. A situation might be a character's trying to save or a character's trying to spend, and we're not teaching that spending is worse than saving. We're teaching sort of, these decisions, we want them to be complex. So maybe it's good that you spend it if you think this purchase is going to be worth it. But, if you save it, that you can get more stuff in the future, but maybe you miss out on something. Mm-hmm. So getting kids to really just have mindfulness and think about their decisions critically, and then hopefully to have parents think about their decisions critically, is really what we're trying to build with WingaDoos.
And who's the team that you have, like, helping with the animation, making the music, all that kind of making the magic happen?
Great. Yeah. So we've got a really cool team. We've got folks from Emmy Award winners who've worked on children's programming, like I'll just say it, Sesame Street. One of our creative directors been working with them for about 25 years.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so
Sesame Street's a real street now, right?
Sure. Isn't it
in New York City? I think so. It's a real street now.
It's possible. They have like Joey Ramone Place, and they give lots of streets out to impactful things. But I've never seen Big Bird walking around the street. I know they film pretty close to here in Long Island City. So we've got a really cool creative team. Our animation team is works with a lot of really big companies, and they've just been excellent partners. They're called Flickr Labs, so I'll give a shout out to them as well. And then besides that, we've got advisors from the financial sector, the education sector, and just a lot of really great, talented people who really know what they're doing, making this stuff. So I'm just helping to drive towards, the expansion of this and the outcomes, but really like the content expertise is, me just sort of working with great people.
And is the hope, as we kind of already talked about it, is the hope then to kind of put a little, I don't know if pressure is the right word, or a haymaker for hope in terms of the school curriculum, and then that this becomes, financial literacy becomes part of the curriculum? Is that one of the goals of WingaDoos?
Yeah, I think, we'd certainly like to find ways to put pressure on governments to be able to advocate for financial literacy at a younger age. What I think is really happening is a lot of, this debt conversation has caused a lot of states to rethink what they're teaching. And, states like Massachusetts, Wisconsin, in the last couple of years have added financial literacy curriculum. New Jersey has just mandated it for middle schoolers. But what we really want to do is get this pushed into every single level of the curriculum. So, our goal is to really be owners, or not really owners, but like to think for people when they think about money for kids, for young kids and families with young kids, for them to think about WingaDoos. And, whatever advocacy efforts we can make towards that end, we'll certainly do.
And for the WingaDoos themselves, why pigeons? Why is this a New York thing, or is this a
little bit? I don't know how far we're going with this, but like the original name for where the WingaDoos live was Williamsburg.
That's pretty good, yeah. That's pretty clever.
I don't know if we're really going to stick with that, but pigeons are not really owned in the cartoon space. There's mice, and then there's squirrels, and there's all this other stuff. There's tigers. And I think, to my knowledge, I don't think anyone really thinks of, like, when you say pigeons, nothing really jumps to mind. So for us, that was like a tactical decision, pigeons. Plus we live in New York City, so it was probably
nice little homage to the city.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. And then in terms of your work outside of the WingaDoos, you are part of the Brooklyn Entrepreneurs Club.
Yeah, that's something I used to do. I used to run a lot of entrepreneurial events here in the city. The community has really grown in the last few years, so it's been something that's really important to me. I no longer have a position in organizing any of the Brooklyn Entrepreneurs events, but it's a passion of mine to help build community.
Well, the reason I brought it up was I was curious, like, what is the startup scene like in New York City? And is it growing? Is it stagnant? Is it, like, how would you kind of describe it from your interactions?
Well, I think it's made tremendous progress in the last few years. I remember the first time I graduated, not the first time I graduated college, but the first company I ever worked on after college was a startup. And I think back then, and this is 2008, 2009, there was this real sense of a very early stage scene that the real stuff was happening in Silicon Valley, and the real money was in Silicon Valley and Boston. And now I think New York has surpassed Boston in terms of the number of startups and number of funding, and it's really done an amazing job of establishing a real community. WeWork, which is a New York City company, has really helped that. There's WeWorks all over the city. We're right now sitting in a Green Desk, which is also another kind of co-working space.
Yard. I've seen Yard.
The Yard. There's a number of really, really good ones from every sort of, price range up. And I think people now understand, the sense of community a little bit more. It's not weird to tell people you work at a startup. And I think, there's enough funding here for you not to need to go to Silicon Valley and Boston, which is really exciting for a lot of companies. And the other thing about it is that there's access to a lot of brain power here. So, in New York City, you've got the brands. In our case, you've got the banking and financial institution sector. So the access to partners to be able to elevate your startup here is pretty unparalleled on a global scale, I think.
It seems like it's almost shifted, where New York City used to be the place where you would start up a band.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like a place where you do a startup instead.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess it's like that's just naturally happens everywhere. I guess you still can start a band in New York City, but it's probably really hard. I mean, I remember I used to go to Arlene's Grocery on the Lower East Side, and you go to a bunch of hip hop shows, and I think it's certainly getting harder to do that or to be an indie band. But somebody mentioned this to me once. It's really, really, I really thought it was interesting. Like, one of the cool things about New York City is because of the way it's set up and because, rent is expensive, you have to, if you want to start a creative pursuit, you almost have to support it with another thing that you're doing. So, and I think that has a lot of benefits. It makes you work harder. You're more pressured into time. You have to work more efficiently. And it also gives you an opportunity to touch a lot more creative pursuits and get perspective on stuff. And I think that breeds a lot of really interesting people and a lot of really creative ideas from that.
New York's always been a hub like that, though, like from 60s, 70s on now, just punk and filmmakers. You mentioned hip hop, there's always been, and I think it's part of that. It's just that hustle. Whenever I've come to New York, I'm from Toronto, but whenever I come to New York, it feels like even the hot dog vendor is trying to
trying to sell you something,
trying to get trying
besides
to sling
hot dogs,
trying to sling 200 hot dogs a day or whatever. You know what I mean? Even the hot dog guy is hustling.
Yeah,
right. And
that's what you got to do, man.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel necessarily that way from Toronto or Chicago or some of the other cities necessarily.
Yeah,
where people tend to be a little more relaxed, I guess.
The
hustle's not as hard.
Totally. I mean, people very distinctly live to work here. And, it's by necessity, and it's also, people move here to live to work. I don't think very many people move to New York City because they want to go to the beach on the weekends. People are, trying to do their best. And because that's a really good learning environment. There's a lot of people to learn from who just do things better than you. And you see them everywhere. And, it's just a really good environment to learn the hustle. And everybody's really proud of that here.
Which kind of feeds back into your app for the WingaDoos, because that's always the choices you got to make. Like, if the money's coming in, like, do you buy a new guitar or do you pay the rent?
That's right. Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to record somewhere.
What's really a need and what's really a want.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right? Because it's like, but then if you get the guitar and you write one hit, you're on easy street.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's true. I mean, and that's kind of like a little bit of what we want to get to. That's a complex decision. Do you spend money on something that can earn you money, or do you spend money on the rent? It's not an easy thing, and people need to think critically about their decisions. And we want to think curb or just get people to understand impulse control. I mentioned delayed gratification earlier, but yeah, in that sense, it is sort of a very New York City kind of attitude, but it's also an attitude that all Americans face. Most Americans can't afford an emergency $500 expense, so they have to live with this decision of what do they do every day? Do they pay the rent, or they put food on the table? These are tough decisions, and we certainly don't take them lightly when we're writing the material we're writing.
Yeah, the healthcare was like that for a while for the States, where like it was fine as long as you were healthy. The second you got sick, even if it's just a minor, like you break your leg or something like that, something minor where you can recover, it would set you back like for years in terms of the costs and everything associated with it. And that was kind of like the financial gamble, I guess, that you take, right?
It's a shame. I'm not here to get into obviously the faults of the healthcare system, but
for sure. That was just an analogy.
Yeah, but it's true. Like, it has a massive, impact on how people make any kind of financial decisions, and even the need to buy insurance is a difficult one. Like, as I said before, if you're debating between putting food on the table or paying the rent, like, how does insurance factor into your decisions? You're probably not going to prioritize it. And then if you get sick, you're really in deep trouble. Very, very tough economic situation we're in. Yeah.
So we'll close on this. You are in New York City, and you like a lot of hip hop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How are you? Do you like a lot of the old school stuff? Do you like some of the new stuff that's happening?
Yeah.
Where are you on this? This is probably the hardest question I've asked you, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
Where are you on the spectrum?
Where am I on the spectrum? So, I don't want to say an encyclopedic knowledge, but like a really good knowledge of anything before 2007 or 8.
Those were good years before then.
And I'm not disparaging anybody who's in the modern realm. I just don't know it as well. Like, my life has changed a little bit, and I don't listen to hip hop as much. It doesn't get me motivated in the same way. And I don't know if that's just a factor of like the changing music and me like not liking it as much, because there was certainly a ton of stuff I did not like in the 2000s when I was really into it. But it's just, growing older as a person, and I try to listen to what I can, and there's definitely like a lot of modern stuff I do like. But I mean, having like really paying attention to what's going on is just less of a priority for me now. But ask me anything, in the 2000s, 90s, or even before that, I'm pretty good. Chances are I've listened to it or have very strong opinions about it one way or the other.
All right. Yeah. We'll have to leave it there for now because you have a flight to catch. But yeah, the app, of course, WingaDoos, you can get it on all the different iTunes store, all the usual spots.
Yeah, it's actually the one you can get it on any Android device or iPad. It is not yet available for iPhone. But what I'd recommend everybody do is go to WingaDoos.com. And log in. We have a browser-based version that can be used on any single device from WingaDoos.com.
Great, and that should hopefully help the kids because cash rules everything around me.
That's right. Get the money, dollar bills, y'all.
There we go. We got to end it there. Thank you, Sam, for hanging out and talking to me about the app and about old school New York, new school New York, and we covered a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sammy.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Sammy Younan, and this has been My Summer Lair on location in Greenpoint in New York City. After we were done, it was lunchtime, and Sam recommended Little Nick Outpost on Franklin Street. Also worth checking out after you downloaded the WingaDoos app. Lots of homework. Thankfully, some of it is delicious. I appreciate Brian Meesey for setting this up, and I was gratefully joined on this adventure with award-winning photographer Henry Vanderspeck. You can see what he sees at culturesnap.ca. Comments, fears, and cheers can be directed to My Pal Sammy on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall.